Hi Crime Fam, welcome to Crime Dopers. My name is Wanjiru. Today's story is one of the most heartbreaking cases to come out of Kenya in the last 2 decades. It's not just about a crime, it's about a young woman, a mother, a daughter, a friend. Someone who deserved so much more than the brutal, lonely death she suffered. Her name was Agnes Wanjiru. She was only 21 years old when she was murdered in Nanyuki in 2012. Her body will be found weeks later, dumped in a septic tank. And to this day, more than a decade later, her family is still fighting for full justice. This case stretches far beyond one hotel room in Kenya. It involves international soldiers, allegations of cover-ups, and years of unanswered questions. And as always, listener discretion is advised. Agnes Wanjiru was born and raised in Kenya. She came from a modest family that valued hard work and dignity. She was known for her easy laugh, her vibrant personality, and her love for life. But her life wasn't easy. At just 21, she was already a mother to a 5-month-old baby girl. To support her child, Agnes worked as a hairdresser, and sometimes, when money was tight, she engaged in sex work. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't safe, but it was survival. In March of 2012, British soldiers were in Nanyuki for a training exercise. The small town, about 200 kilometers from Nairobi, often hosted troops from the UK. Their presence was normal. Locals were used to seeing them in hotels, restaurants, and clubs. And that's how Agnes's life collided with theirs. On the night of 31st, 2012, Agnes went out with friends to the Lion's Court Hotel. It was a lively spot with music, drinks, and dancing, a place where soldiers and locals often mixed. Witnesses later said that Agnes was seen with 2 British soldiers. She seemed relaxed, trusting. Nothing suggested that this will be the last night of her life. At some point during the night, Agnes separated from her friends. She was spotted walking off with one soldier. They entered a private area of the hotel. It was a cottage or maybe a room. That was the last time anyone saw Agnes alive. Agnes never returned home. Her friends grew worried. Her family waited. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And then, 2 months later, hotel staff made a horrifying discovery. Agnes's body was found stuffed inside a septic tank at the Lion's Court Hotel. The autopsy was chilling. She had been stabbed multiple times. Her body showed blunt force injuries. Her lungs had collapsed. There was evidence that she may still have been alive when she was dumped in the septic tank. Imagine that. A young woman barely clinging to life, thrown into sewage and left to die. This wasn't just a murder, it was cruelty at its worst. Now, from the start, the investigation was complicated. Witnesses recalled Agnes leaving with a British soldier. Some even say they overheard confessions later on. One hotel guard described finding blood and a broken mirror in the room where Agnes had been taken. But that evidence, it was reportedly cleaned up, repairs made, traces erased. And so the case dragged for years. In 2019, 7 years later, a Kenyan magistrate finally concluded what many already knew. Agnes Wanjiru was murdered by 1 or more British soldiers. But the problem was jurisdiction. Who would prosecute? Kenya? The UK? Both governments pointed fingers and the case stalled. Meanwhile, whispers grew louder. Other soldiers claimed they had heard one of their own confess, but no arrests were made. One detective later said this was a cover-up from the very beginning. Too many people looked the other way. For years, Agnes's family had no closure, no trial, no justice. But in 2021, international media revisited the case. The pressure mounted. More than 20 British soldiers came forward with testimonies. The world started paying attention again. And finally, in 2025, Kenya's High Court issued an arrest warrant for a British suspect. They ordered extradition procedures to begin. It was a breakthrough, but even then, questions still lingered. Will the UK comply? Will their soldier face trial in Kenya? As of today, those questions remain unsolved. Agnes Wanjiru's story is not just about her mother. It's about the daughter she left behind, now a teenager, growing up without her mother. It's about a family that has carried grief for more than a decade. It's about a community that still remembers the young woman with the bright smile who never came home. And it's about justice delayed. Because, let's be clear, justice delayed is justice denied. This case has exposed cracks not only in Kenya's system, but in the international cooperation between nations. It has raised questions about how women like Agnes, poor, vulnerable, marginalized, are often forgotten until their stories become too loud to ignore. When I think about Agnes, I don't just think about the septic tank or the broken glass or the headlines. I think about a young woman holding her baby. I think about her dreams for that child. I think about the laughter her friends still remember. Agnes wasn't a statistic. She wasn't disposable. She mattered. Her death is a reminder that violence against women isn't just an individual tragedy. It's a societal failure. It's about how systems protect the powerful and silence the vulnerable. As we close this episode, I want us to remember Agnes Wanjiru, not for how she died, but for the life she lived, and for the justice she still deserves. Because justice for Agnes is justice for every woman who has been told her life doesn't matter. This has been the story of Agnes Wanjiru. And maybe before I sign off, there has been a new development. In early 2025, the High Court in Kenya issued an arrest warrant for the man long suspected of Agnes's murder, Robert Perkis. The court directed the Kenyan government to begin extradition proceedings so that he could be brought back to face trial. After more than a decade of waiting, this was the first official step toward holding someone accountable. Now, will he be extradited? Will he stand trial in Kenya? That's still unfolding. But what we know is this: Agnes's story isn't over, and neither is this fight for justice.